Hi folks, welcome back. Thank you for watching. Please do hit subscribe if you haven't done so yet. It really does help when you do that. So a few weeks ago I took receipt of this, the absolutely outstanding Kingsley Page, which is a tube-based overdrive pedal. The single 12AX7 in here is being run at proper high voltage, just like it would in a guitar amp, and the tube is being used to create all the saturation, which isn't the case in a lot of tube pedals on the market. Often the tubes are run at starved voltages, so they're not really in their happy place, and often the tubes aren't actually used to create any clipping whatsoever. So in a pedal such as the BK Butler tube driver, for example, most of the clipping in that pedal is done by an op-amp circuit, much like most other overdrive pedals, and that clipped compressed signal is just passed through a tube on the output of the pedal, much like a sort of recording studio mic preamp, just to add a little bit of, insert buzzword here, warmth and vibe and colour, all that sort of stuff. So in that pedal, the tube isn't being used to do any clipping whatsoever, whereas in the Page, it is completely used to do all the clipping, which gives it that lovely spongy feeling under the fingers and that creamy breakup that does sound like a top tube amp turned up. It is an absolutely outstanding pedal. Now, one topic that comes up on forums all the time is how do Kingsley pedals compare to Effectrode pedals? Because both those companies always seem to rise right to the top of the pile in terms of being the absolute best tube-driven pedals out there. So what I want to do today is compare the Kingsley to a couple of different Effectrode pedals, because Kingsley is run by Simon Jarrett, who's from the UK originally. He now lives over in Canada, whereas for me in the UK, Effectrode are based over here, so they're much more available. I don't have to pay international shipping and import duty on Effectrode pedals in the way I do with the Kingsley. So I wanted to see today whether the Effectrode pedals are of equivalent quality and clarity and can create similar types of effect to the Page. So there isn't really an equivalent Effectrode pedal to the Page. Cosmetically, the one that looks the most similar is the Fire Bottle, but there is a difference. The Page has a master volume, whereas the Fire Bottle doesn't. So this pedal doesn't really gain up on its own. It just adds a sort of clean tube boost to push the front end of your amp. Whereas with the Page, you can gain up the tube and then back the volume down so it's not destroying the front end of your amplifier. So they are quite different. I think the Kingsley pedal that's most equivalent to the Fire Bottle is the Peasant. It's a very similar concept. So I think the pedal that's most similar to the Page in the Effectrode lineup is this, the Tube Drive. But straight away you'll see there's a very important difference. The Page has a single 12AX7 in it. This has 3 tubes, all cascading into each other. So as stock, it has 2 12AX7s and an AT7. So there's a huge amount of gain on tap with all those tubes running into each other. And you'll see on the front it says boost, overdrive and distortion. It can definitely get you into distortion territory. The Page is very much a kind of low to medium gain overdrive, more gain than I would ever use, to be honest. It's ample for me, but in the grand scheme of pedals it's not a gain monster, whereas the Tube Drive definitely is. So it's a very, very different pedal. But what's nice about this series of Effectrode pedals is you can take the tubes out and swap other 12A tubes in, a T7s, a V7s, all that sort of stuff. They're all interchangeable with each other for different levels of gain, because all different tubes have a different gain factor. So what I've done today, the 12AX7 in the Page has a gain factor of 100. This pedal now has an AT7 in the V1 position, and V2 and 3 have AU7s. So the AT has a gain factor of 60, and the two 12AUs have a gain factor each of 20. So you can probably see where the maths is going here. In theory, this pedal should now be in a very similar gain range to the Page. Now, running that lower gain tubes in this pedal, it's not in its happy place. So you'll see that the volume is turned all the way up in terms of output level. It wants to see more gain to attenuate it, and I'm not giving it to it. So it's not working exactly as it wants to. It does work absolutely fine. It sounds glorious. It's designed around having a lot more gain in it. So don't be put off by where the controls are set. Now, as I said, these two pedals are very, very different to each other, because they are not clones of each other. They are designed to do a very different job. But today I wanted to try and see how close I can get the Page sounding to both the Fire Bottle and the Tube Drive, purely to see what the difference in quality and clarity and breakup is like. If you're based in the UK, can you buy Effectrode pedals and not have to wait for a Kingsley? Are they equivalent? How do they compare? So first and foremost, I'm going to compare the page to the fire bottle, and I'm going to run the volume of the page all the way up. So the master volume isn't being used, I'm just using the tube to push the front end of the amp, like I'll be doing with the fire bottle. And in the second half of the video, I'm going to compare these two, just to see if I can get them sounding broadly similar to each other. So without further ado, guys, let's get tubing. are, folks. Now, please do comment underneath, let me know what you were hearing today. I love getting your thoughts and opinions in the comment sections. But I'll be completely honest, I was staggered at how close these two pedals can sound with these low gain tubes in. I started shooting the demo and I had to stop, go back, set up a GoPro to film my feet switching the pedals on my pedal board so that when I edit the footage, I know which pedal was on and when. They were that close. Usually in a comparison video, it's really obvious just listening to it which pedal was which, but not today. Now, there were a few very subtle differences between them. I think the bass, boost and cut were in a slightly different frequency range to each other. There was a little bit of a difference in breakup characteristics, which you would expect having 3 tubes compared to the Page's 1. But overall, unless you're A-Bing these two pedals side by side, you would not be able to tell a difference whatsoever. Now, as I said at the start of the video, the tube driver isn't really in its happy place with the volume having to be all the way up. So I would put some slightly higher gain tubes in here just to make the controls a little bit more usable. But with that tube set in there, you can absolutely make these two sound almost exactly the same. Now, with the fire bottle, that's a little bit easier because the pedals weren't really gaining up on their own. They were pushing the front end of the amp. So the breakup you were hearing was the front end of the amp breaking up rather than the pedals. But again, they were almost exactly the same. I think there was a little difference in the low end again, but really nothing much. So if you have a Kingsley pedal and you're wondering how it compares to an Effectrode or vice versa, they are absolutely equivalent. You can make these two, especially with this tube set in there, sound almost exactly the same. So both companies do make some of the absolute highest quality tube-based pedals out there. So I hope that puts a few of the forum rumours to rest. Thank you ever so much for watching, folks. I hope this video was interesting and useful for you. Please do carry on subscribing. I know I always say it, but it does make a huge, huge difference when you do that. And I will see you next time. Bye-bye.